Hello, and welcome to another edition of For the Health of It, a new health segment on health and wellness that is geared towards providing necessary health information, getting it out to our friends, family, and to our greater community. So we're so glad that you are here with us today. We've got an exciting topic to talk about. You all are kind of aware of what has been in the news over the last several weeks. I know many of you saw the Oscars. We want to talk about that. At this time, we want to talk about Jada. We want to talk about specifically Jada's alopecia, why Black women are losing their hair. We want to have a good conversation and just share some good information to you just about the science of hair and what is going on with culturally, some of the cultural differences with Black women and hair loss. And so today we have with us our resident expert, Dr. Laverne Bruce. Dr. Bruce, it's always great to have you. God has blessed you with so much insight and knowledge, and we're so glad that you share the research that is out there. So I want to ask you, the first question is, can you talk to us about the science of hair?
Thank you so much, Dr. Kinlock, for having me. It's always a pleasure being on this platform with you. And we are talking today about alopecia. And first of all, let me make a disclaimer. I am not a dermatologist who would be the true expert in this area, but I do enjoy studying wellness. And this is a part of wellness and well-being. So essentially, we all talk about hair, but very few people really understand what hair is. So hair is essentially a derivative of our skin. And in the dermis, under the skin, there's a little pocket of living cells. Of course, it has DNA in it, which is why hair is often used for DNA identification. A little pocket of living cells. And that little pocket of cells keeps growing and dividing. That's called a hair follicle. It's nourished by blood vessels, which brings nutrients and oxygen, removes waste. It produces a very, very hard protein called keratin, which then becomes incorporated in what's called the shaft. And that's what we call hair. If this follicle becomes damaged for any reason, and there are many, 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 many reasons, then since it's a living thing, it dies. And then the hair shaft also dies and falls off. And that's how come we have baldness or alopecia.
Okay, good. Great information. Thank you for sharing that. What are some of the cultural and biological differences with hair?
Well, that's a huge question. We could spend hours discussing this topic, as you know. But essentially, every culture has something to say about the stuff that grows off the top of our head. And it's really just stuff that grows off the top of our head. In the Bible, a woman's hair is described as her glory. We know that in some religions, for example, women have to cover their hair because their hair is considered so tempting to men that they must cover it all. Some cultures, women have long hair. Some cultures, women have short hair. In the Maasai people in Africa, for example, the men have beautiful waist-length locks, and the women, they sport beautifully shaved heads. So in our culture, which is primarily a European-based culture, long, straight hair has been revered for a long time. So that we, as people of African heritage, many women have often spent a lot of time trying to make their African hair conform to this standard.
Right.
Now, biologically, our hair is different because of our ethnicity. People from the Caucasian diaspora or of that particular type of hair where climes are cold, they tend to have long hair and straight in order to hold heat onto the head. People from warmer climates tend to have shorter, thicker, curlier hair to allow heat to dissipate from the head. Those are some of our major biological differences.
All right. That's very, very interesting to hear how just climate and geography impacts hair length. Dr. Bruce, are Black women then more susceptible to hair loss? And if so, why?
Well, let's say that it is not a problem unique to Black women because all people have hair loss at some point in time. I mean, Pastor, you're sporting a bald head there. I'm not, I think that's hair loss by design.
There was a day that I had locks.
I do remember that day. I do remember that day. But at least 25% of women in the United States of America will experience hair loss at some point in time. However, in a study of African American women or women of African heritage, they found up to 50% complained of having hair loss at some point in time. So that is a big difference. Now, what are some of the reasons? Well, one, for example, Black women can have hair loss from the same reasons that any other people group has hair loss. So we're talking about illness, medication side effects, vitamin and dietary problems. Vitamins are quite important. Loss of vitamins in your diet, of course, can lead to loss of hair. In particular, B vitamins, and some people also add A vitamins and vitamin D. Hormonal problems can make you lose your hair. If your thyroid is abnormal, your thyroid hormonal levels are abnormal, and a very rare mineral, selenium, has been linked to poor thyroid function, which leads to hair loss. Poor care of the hair, poor hair products, and of course, there are the genetic differences. So the two main genetic differences I can mention today, one is female pattern hair loss, which is linked to either genetics, where women start losing hair sort of more in the top of the head, that the hairline, the middle part, and on the sides, and hormonal, as women become postmenopausal and the androgens become more predominant, they tend to lose their hair. So basically, those are some of the first set of reasons. Now, in the issue of the autoimmune disease that we've been hearing about so much, that Ms. Pinkett Smith has, there are essentially, this is called alopecia areata. And there are essentially 4 types. So one is where there are clumps or patches of hair that fall out. The second is where the person can lose hair over their entire head. The third is where you lose hair over your entire body. So that can include eyebrows, eyelashes, and other parts of your body. And then the last one is where you can have bands of hair, for example, in the back of your head or going across your head, where you lose hair. And those are the 4 main types of alopecia areata.
Yeah.
Now, the 2 types that Black women are most susceptible to, unfortunately, because of some of the cultural differences in terms of us wearing very tight hairstyles and in terms of wearing wigs and in terms of relaxers. Those are the 3 main problems that we have that contribute to hair loss. So there is what's called scarring alopecia, which is really a result of women using harsh chemicals to straighten, lighten their hair. And this causes scarring of the hair follicle because those chemicals burn the scalp and then leak into the body. It kills the hair follicles, hair dies, and it does not regrow.
Wow.
That can be very, very devastating because we start processing our children's hair from a very young age. And this is for another conversation, but there is a strong relationship between the use of chemical/lye hair relaxers and the higher incidence of fibroid disease, uterine fibroid disease in women of African heritage.
Wow.
So there's alopecia areata, the autoimmune type, scarring alopecia. Then there is traction alopecia, which we are very prone to because we have these wonderful braided hairstyles, for example, which you can see as far back as Egyptian mummies. And then, of course, African women of African heritage tend to use cornrows with weaves and extensions. And the key word here is tight. Any tight hairstyle that pulls on the hair, causes a lot of traction, decreases the blood supply to that precious follicle, the hair dies and does not regrow. This also includes irritation by wigs. For example, the rough edges of wigs, and there's even wig caps that people think are protecting their hair. Sometimes those wig caps have very, very tiny spacing in the netting, and it can pull baby hairs in and also kill the follicle. And there's very common lace front wigs. One has to be very, very careful how they're used because the hair can get trapped in those lace fronts and also die.
Wow.
The bottom line is these are some of the areas that we need to be very, very careful about.
Absolutely fascinating. I mean, I did not know how detailed and in depth just hair care, as well as just the connection to hair and wellness, hair and health are connected. So thank you so much, Dr. Bruce, for sharing that. If you were blessed, if you felt that this was useful for you, please share it with somebody else. We know that someone else would be blessed as well. Please share, please like, please follow us at metrosda.com, Facebook, and YouTube. And again, thank you for joining us for this segment of For the Health of It. And may God bless you. And remember, always keep the faith.
Thank you for the privilege, as always.
Thank you, Dr. Bruce.